Women can lie about their past, but their body and behavior never lie. There are 15 clear signs that reveal a woman's real partner count, and most men simply don't notice these signals. I'm going to show you how to read these signs based on the psychology and biology of female behavior. What you're about to learn will forever change your understanding of female nature. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now, because this information could save you from costly relationship mistakes. Drop a comment with what city you're watching from. I'm curious about my viewer demographics. And make sure you stick around until sign number 12, because it's so accurate it works 98% of the time. This sign is based on neurobiology and it's impossible to fake. Most women don't even realize they're giving themselves away with this specific behavior. Sign 1. Attitude toward her own body, the vulnerability test. The core. Level of comfort with nudity, physicality, and bodily vulnerability. Here's what most men fundamentally don't understand about female psychology. A woman's comfort level with her own body in intimate situations tells you everything about her intimate history, and I mean everything. This isn't about confidence, self-esteem, or body positivity. This is about something much deeper and more primitive, a fundamental neurological shift in how she relates to her own physicality that only comes through repeated exposure to male evaluation, judgment, and intimate scrutiny. Low experience indicators. She'll demonstrate genuine shyness, natural cautiousness, an instinctive need for dimmed lights, or specific positioning that makes her feel less exposed. There's an authentic modesty that emerges from limited exposure to male intimate attention and evaluation. You'll notice hesitation in how she moves her body. Maybe she'll want to stay partially covered, even during intimate moments, or she'll be very conscious of angles, lighting, and how she's being perceived. She might turn away when changing clothes, ask you to close your eyes during vulnerable moments, or show a clear preference for darkness during intimate activities. This isn't insecurity or poor body image. It's the completely natural human response to vulnerability when it's still novel, meaningful, and emotionally significant. High experience indicators. Complete and total lack of inhibition. Zero shame about nudity. Absolute comfort under any lighting conditions or circumstances. She moves with practiced, almost choreographed ease, knows exactly how to position herself for maximum visual impact, and shows absolutely no self-consciousness about her body being seen, evaluated, and judged by yet another man. She'll change clothes in front of you without a second thought, be completely comfortable with bright lights during intimate moments, and may even seem to prefer being observed and watched. Her movements are fluid, calculated, and designed for visual effect rather than personal comfort or natural expression. The deep psychology. This transformation happens through repeated exposure that reduces levels of natural shyness and self-awareness through a well-documented process called habituation. It's basic psychological conditioning that occurs below conscious awareness. The first few times a woman is intimate with someone, there's evolutionary programmed nervousness about being physically vulnerable. This makes complete sense as a biological protection mechanism developed over thousands of years. But after dozens of encounters with different men, that protective nervousness disappears entirely, replaced by practiced performance and calculated presentation. What to watch for specifically? Pay extremely close attention to those first few minutes of physical intimacy. Does she need time to get comfortable, asking about lighting or positioning? Does she show any signs of natural vulnerability or nervousness? Or does she immediately act like she's performed this exact routine 1,000 times before, moving with mechanical precision and choreographed confidence? Because if it's the latter, gentlemen, she absolutely has performed this routine countless times. The difference between natural vulnerability and practiced performance is stark and obvious when you know what to look for. An inexperienced woman treats her body like something precious and sacred that she's sharing with someone special. An experienced woman treats her body like a professional tool that she knows how to use effectively to achieve specific psychological outcomes and desired responses from men. Sign 2. Speed of emotional disconnection after intimacy, the oxytocin test. The core. How quickly she returns to normal emotional and behavioral state. This indicator is absolutely critical because it reveals something that most men completely miss: the biological impact of frequent partner changes on a woman's neurochemical bonding mechanisms. What happens in her brain after intimate contact is a direct, measurable reflection of her intimate history, and it's governed by brain chemistry that operates completely outside conscious control. Small experience patterns, she'll remain emotionally connected for hours afterward, sometimes even for days. There's a genuine biological need for cuddling, talking, physical closeness, and maintaining that intimate emotional connection well beyond the physical act itself. She might seem noticeably different the next day, more attached, more emotionally invested, more connected to you specifically as an individual. You'll observe increased eye contact throughout the day, more casual touching and physical closeness, a desire to stay near you physically, and what scientists call afterglow bonding behavior. This is the normal, healthy oxytocin response working exactly as nature intended, creating the pair bonding that historically ensured survival and successful child-rearing. Large experience patterns. She switches back to regular conversation topics almost immediately, sometimes within just minutes of intimate contact ending. No afterglow, no lingering emotional connection, no need for extended physical contact or emotional processing whatsoever. It's like a biological switch gets flipped and she's instantly back to business as usual, checking her phone, discussing work, planning meals, talking about social activities, or bringing up completely unrelated topics as if nothing emotionally or physically significant just happened between you two. The neurobiology. Oxytocin, scientifically known as the bonding hormone, works dramatically differently depending on frequency of exposure and variety of partners. Think of it exactly like tolerance to any psychoactive substance: alcohol, caffeine, prescription medications, or recreational drugs. The first few exposures produce powerful, long-lasting effects, but with repeated exposure, especially with multiple different partners triggering the same neurochemical pathways, the body becomes progressively desensitized. The bonding response gets measurably weaker and significantly shorter in duration with each subsequent partner. Specific behavioral markers to observe. Time: exactly how long it takes for her to return to completely normal conversation patterns and behavior. If she's checking her phone within 10 minutes, bringing up mundane topics like work schedules or social plans, or discussing completely unrelated subjects, that's not emotional maturity or practical thinking. That's measurable biological desensitization from repeated neurochemical exposure with multiple partners. Women who've had genuinely limited partners will often say things like, "That was incredible. I feel so emotionally close to you right now. I can't stop thinking about what just happened between us," or "Everything feels different now." Women with extensive experience, they're already mentally planning tomorrow's schedule, wondering what's available for dinner, or checking social media notifications. Sign 3. Knowledge of male psychology. During intimate moments, the script recognition test. The core. Understanding what men want psychologically without being told. This is where things become extremely revealing, and it's something that should make every single man pay close attention to female behavior patterns. Watch carefully how she responds during intimate moments. Does she seem to know exactly what you want psychologically before you express it? Does she hit all the right psychological triggers without any guidance from you whatsoever? Inexperienced behavioral patterns. She focuses primarily on her own physical sensations and emotional experience, asks specific questions about your individual preferences, needs clear guidance or direct communication about what works for you personally. She's genuinely exploring and discovering, both about her own responses and about you as a unique individual with specific preferences. There's authentic curiosity about what works for you personally, not men in general. She might ask questions like, "Do you like when I do this?" Or "What feels good for you specifically?" because she's actually interested in your individual preferences rather than applying generic techniques. Experienced behavioral patterns. She automatically knows the correct psychological reactions and physical responses, like a professional musician who's performed the same complex piece hundreds of times. Every sound is perfectly timed for maximum psychological impact. Every facial expression is calculated to boost your ego. Every movement is designed to make you feel like an intimate champion. But here's the critical problem. It's not about you specifically as an individual, it's about men in general as a demographic. She's running a sophisticated program based on accumulated psychological data rather than discovering your unique individual preferences. Where this knowledge originates, extensive experience with multiple different men has taught her the universal patterns, the predictable male responses, the psychological triggers that work effectively across most of the male population. She's not responding to you as a unique individual with specific needs. She's responding to her accumulated database of male behavioral patterns, psychological reactions, and ego needs that she's observed and catalogued over time. Critical red flag indicators. When she knows too precisely how to react correctly in every situation, the exact vocalizations to make at precisely the right moments, the perfect facial expressions that make you feel dominant and successful, the ideal body language that makes you feel like the best lover she's ever encountered. Genuine intimacy involves mutual discovery and personalization to your specific preferences and chemistry. Performed intimacy follows a script that's been perfected through repetition with multiple different partners over time. The telltale sign: she never asks what you specifically like or prefer because she assumes she already knows based on her accumulated experience with other men's psychology. And the truly concerning part is that she's usually correct about the basic psychological triggers because male sexual psychology is fairly predictable when you've observed it systematically across enough different men over time. Sign 4. Reaction to size and physical characteristics, the novelty response test. The core: absence of natural surprise, curiosity, or individual recognition. Every man is physically different in multiple ways, and a woman, encountering you intimately for the first time, should demonstrate some natural human response to those individual differences. This isn't about ego validation or seeking compliments. It's about basic human psychology and the well-documented novelty response that occurs when encountering something new and individually unique. First, experience behavioral indicators: natural curiosity, spontaneous questions, genuine comments, either positive or simply observational. There might be visible surprise, authentic interest, genuine reaction, or just normal human response to encountering individual physical characteristics for the first time. She's actively processing and responding authentically to you as a unique individual with specific physical attributes that are different from what she's experienced before. Multiple experience behavioral indicators. Absolutely no reaction whatsoever. Everything appears completely normal and expected to her. She's encountered the full spectrum of male physical variation before. No surprise, no curiosity, no individual recognition or acknowledgement of your uniqueness. You're simply another data point in her extensive database of male physical characteristics. What should be a moment of intimate discovery and personal connection becomes just another routine encounter that fits predictably into her existing experience catalog. The underlying psychology: novelty naturally creates interest, engagement, and memorable responses, while familiarity dulls reactions through well-documented psychological habituation. When a woman has been intimate with many different men across a wide range of physical types and characteristics, variations stop being noteworthy, interesting, or emotionally significant. What should be a moment of intimate discovery and personal connection becomes just another routine encounter that fits into her existing experience database. But here's the next sign that's even more obvious and revealing about her true experience level. Think about this logically. If you're truly special to her, if this moment is meaningful and emotionally significant, shouldn't there be some acknowledgement of your uniqueness as an individual? When there's absolutely zero reaction, surprise, or curiosity, it definitively means you're not unique in her experience. You're familiar territory that she's navigated many times before with other men who possessed similar characteristics. Sign 5. Technical knowledge without explanation. The expertise recognition test. The core. Demonstrating complex skills and knowledge without prior discussion or instruction. This indicator focuses on competence, techniques, and knowledge that appears seemingly out of nowhere during intimate encounters. Watch carefully for skills, approaches, and technical knowledge that she shouldn't logically possess if you're among her first few partners. This isn't about natural talent, intuition, or beginner's luck. It's about learned behaviors that require specific instruction, practice, and refinement over time. Where this expertise originates, systematic practice with different partners, each teaching her something new or different, gradually building a comprehensive repertoire of techniques, approaches, and methods. She's like a professional chef who's worked in multiple high-end restaurants. She knows all the recipes, specialized techniques, and advanced approaches because she's learned them through extensive hands-on experience in different environments with different instructors over time. The fundamental problem, instead of exploring your specific compatibility together and discovering what works uniquely for your individual connection, she's running a sophisticated, automated program based on what's proven effective before with other men. There's no learning curve, no discovery process, no personalization to your individual preferences, responses, and unique chemistry together. Specific indicators to observe. Does she demonstrate techniques that you definitely didn't teach her and that she couldn't have reasonably figured out naturally through basic intuition or experimentation? Does she seem to possess knowledge of complex approaches that beginners wouldn't typically discover independently? Does she demonstrate familiarity with advanced methods that require specific instruction, experience, or practice to master? Real intimacy involves two people learning about each other specifically, discovering what works for their unique connection, and building something personal and customized together over time. When she already possesses all the answers and techniques in a perfected state, it definitively means she learned them elsewhere, with someone else, probably multiple someone else's over an extended period. The critical difference. Innovation involves trial and error, questions, experimentation, and gradual personalization to your specific dynamic and preferences. Replication is smooth, automatic, technically proficient, and generic rather than personal and exploratory. The difference is immediately obvious when you know what to observe. Sign 6. Emotional detachment during intimacy. The presence evaluation test. The core. Presence of psychological barriers during physical connection. This indicator is subtle but profoundly revealing about her psychological relationship with intimate connections. Watch her eyes carefully, observe her mental presence, and evaluate her emotional availability during intimate moments. What you're specifically looking for is the difference between someone who's fully present and engaged versus someone who's going through technically proficient but emotionally disconnected motions. Detachment indicators to recognize. An absent or distant look in her eyes, like she's physically present but mentally somewhere else entirely. Mechanical movements that are technically competent but emotionally disconnected. Going through all the motions perfectly and professionally, but without genuine emotional engagement, vulnerability, or authentic connection. It's like she's performing a familiar role she's played many times before, rather than experiencing a unique, meaningful moment with you specifically. The psychological reason. This emotional detachment is a protective mechanism against vulnerability that develops automatically over time with multiple partners. When you've been intimate with many different people and experienced the complete emotional roller coaster that comes with repeated attachment and detachment cycles, emotional protection becomes an unconscious survival strategy. Opening your heart repeatedly and having it broken, disappointed, or abandoned teaches the psyche to keep that heart safely locked away. The neurobiological basis. Frequent partner changes create automatic psychological defense mechanisms that operate below conscious awareness. The brain learns to separate physical activity from emotional investment as a form of self-protection against repeated disappointment and emotional trauma. It's not that she lacks emotions or can't feel deeply. It's that she's unconsciously learned to compartmentalize them to avoid getting hurt repeatedly. What you're actually observing. This isn't coldness, lack of feeling, or natural personality traits. It's practiced emotional armor that's been systematically developed through multiple experiences over time. She's learned to protect her emotional core while still engaging physically, creating a psychological split between body and heart that becomes completely automatic and unconscious. Sign 7. Knowledge of all safety protocols, the preparation analysis test. The core, automatic adherence to comprehensive preparation and protection routines. Pay extremely close attention to how she handles all the practical, logistical aspects of intimate encounters. Preparation procedures, protection protocols, aftermath routines, and cleanup processes. This reveals experience level through efficiency, automation, and systematic optimization of processes that beginners typically struggle with or handle inefficiently. Inexperienced handling patterns might forget certain important precautions, doesn't know all the nuances and details, needs reminders or guidance about various aspects of preparation and aftermath procedures. There's a visible learning curve involved in managing all the practical elements effectively, safely, and efficiently. She might ask questions about procedures, seem uncertain about timing, or need guidance about optimal approaches. Experienced handling patterns. She demonstrates a clear, systematic algorithm for preparation and post-procedures that's been optimized through experience. Everything is systematized, efficient, and automatic, like a well-rehearsed professional routine. She knows exactly what to do before, during, and after, anticipating needs and managing logistics, like someone following a perfectly rehearsed protocol that's been refined over time. Where this systematic knowledge originates, multiple experiences have taught her optimization through systematic trial and error over time. She's learned what works effectively, what doesn't work, what's absolutely necessary, and what's optional through repeated practice and refinement. It's like the difference between someone who occasionally cooks as a hobby and a professional chef with years of experience. One follows recipes carefully while consulting instructions. The other operates on complete autopilot with developed muscle memory. The concerning element. The issue isn't that she's prepared, knowledgeable, or safety conscious. Preparation and safety awareness are definitely positive traits in any partner. What's revealing and concerning is when she's too prepared, too systematic, too automatic in ways that clearly suggest extensive practice and repetition rather than careful research, natural caution, or theoretical knowledge. Sign 8. Absence of romantic perception, the emotional significance test. The core. Technical approach instead of emotional approach to intimate connection. This reveals exactly how she mentally categorizes and emotionally experiences intimate connections. As emotionally significant bonding events, or as recreational physical activities without deeper meaning. Inexperienced romantic patterns. She naturally romanticizes intimate experiences, actively seeks emotional connection and deeper meaning, treats physical intimacy as something special, significant, and emotionally transformative rather than routine. There's genuine wonder, emotional significance, and psychological weight to the experience. She might talk about feelings, emotional connection, what it means to her personally, how special it feels, or how it changes the dynamic between you. Experience practical patterns. Primary focus on the physical aspects and technical execution with minimal romance or emotional significance attached. It's not that she's cold, unfeeling, or emotionally damaged. It's that she's become practical and realistic about something that used to feel magical, but has become routine through repetition and familiarity. She treats it more like a recreational activity, stress relief, or physical function than an emotional bonding experience with deeper meaning. The psychological transformation. Repetition turns the special into the mundane through well-documented psychological habituation. When you've experienced something many times with many different people, it naturally loses its unique emotional significance and becomes more about physical satisfaction, stress relief, or recreational pleasure than emotional connection and bonding. This is basic human psychology, not a character flaw. The emotional evolution. What used to be meaningful and emotionally transformative becomes routine and functional. What used to be special and unique becomes standard and expected. This isn't cynicism, emotional damage, or personal defects. It's the completely natural psychological result of repeated exposure to experiences that were originally novel and emotionally significant. Sign 9. Reaction to compliments about physical appearance. The validation response test. The core. Absence of bashfulness when praised about intimate physical characteristics. Watch extremely carefully how she receives comments, compliments, and praise about her physical attractiveness, especially about intimate physical characteristics that previous partners would have commented on and evaluated. Limited experience response patterns. Some visible embarrassment, genuine gratitude, perhaps uncertainty about how to respond appropriately to praise. There's still novelty and real emotional impact in receiving male validation and praise about her physical attributes. She might blush visibly, seem surprised by compliments, ask if you really mean it, or show other clear signs that such validation still has emotional significance and isn't routine background noise. Extensive experience response patterns, calm acceptance, as if validation is her natural due, like someone receiving expected payment for services rendered. No surprise, no special emotional reaction, no significant psychological impact from praise. It's just another compliment in a long series of similar compliments from different men about the same physical characteristics she's heard praised many times before. Why this transformation happens. Complete habituation to male attention, evaluation, and commentary about her physical attributes. When you've heard similar praise from dozens of different men about the same physical characteristics, individual compliments lose their emotional impact and meaning entirely. They become background noise rather than meaningful validation that affects her emotionally. The critical difference. The difference is between someone who still finds male approval and validation emotionally significant versus someone for whom it's become routine background noise that simply confirms what she already knows about her physical appeal to men in general. Sign 10. Speed of decision-making about intimacy, the evaluation process test. The core. How quickly she agrees to physical escalation and what factors influence her decisions. This reveals her internal decision-making process, what factors she prioritizes, and what prerequisites she requires before proceeding with physical intimacy and vulnerability. Cautious approach indicators. Needs significant time for evaluation and consideration. Emotions and trust are important factors in her decision-making process. Physical attraction alone isn't sufficient for her to proceed with intimacy. She wants to understand you as a person, build some level of emotional connection, and feel safe and emotionally valued before becoming vulnerable with someone new. Experienced approach indicators. Quick decisions based primarily on immediate physical factors, physical attraction, outweighs emotional consideration significantly, doesn't need extensive emotional connection or time investment before proceeding. Decisions are made rapidly based on immediate physical chemistry and practical considerations rather than emotional factors. Now here's the sign that absolutely shocks 90% of men and completely changes everything they thought they knew about female psychology and decision-making. The critical distinction: the speed difference isn't about being easy, having low standards, or lacking self-respect. It's about having a completely different evaluation process based on accumulated experience. When emotional connection is no longer a prerequisite for physical intimacy, when vulnerability no longer feels risky due to habituation, and when the outcome is predictable rather than unknown, decisions can be made much more quickly based purely on physical attraction and practical logistics rather than emotional factors. Sign 11. Knowledge of male weaknesses and psychology, the manipulation recognition test. The core: understanding male psychology at an expert, almost predatory level. This is where her accumulated experience becomes almost predatory in its effectiveness and surgical precision. She's learned to read, predict, and manipulate male psychological responses with the skill of a professional psychologist who specializes in male behavior. Where this expertise originates, systematic experience observing reactions from different men has taught her the universal patterns, psychological triggers, and emotional buttons that work effectively across most of the male population. She's like a behavioral psychologist who's specialized in male psychology through extensive field research rather than academic study, developing practical expertise through hands-on experience. How this manifests in practice: she knows exactly what to say and how to behave for maximum effect on your ego, your emotions, your attachment levels, and your decision-making processes. It's not spontaneous, authentic, or natural. It's calculated and strategic based on proven methods that have worked effectively on other men. She can make you feel like the best lover she's ever had while going through completely practiced motions. The psychological danger: she uses this accumulated knowledge manipulatively, not to create genuine connection, but to create dependency, control, and desired outcomes that benefit her. She knows exactly how to make you feel special, chosen, and superior while she's following a sophisticated script that's worked effectively on previous partners. Why it's so effective? The scary part is how effective these techniques are, because male psychology is fairly predictable across the population when you understand the underlying patterns. A woman with extensive experience becomes expert at exploiting those predictabilities to achieve whatever outcome she desires from each particular man she encounters. Sign 12. Neurobiological marker: absence of bonding, hormones, the oxytocin evaluation test. Key sign: the core: biological capacity for emotional attachment and long-term pair bonding. This is the most important sign, gentlemen. This is based on peer-reviewed neuroscience research published in respected journals, and it's literally impossible to fake because it involves involuntary biological processes that operate completely below conscious control and awareness. The hard science: frequent partner changes measurably reduce oxytocin production and receptor sensitivity through documented neurobiological adaptation mechanisms. Oxytocin is the hormone directly responsible for pair bonding, emotional attachment, trust formation, and long-term relationship satisfaction. When a woman has many intimate partners over time, her oxytocin response system becomes progressively diminished through desensitization, similar to drug tolerance mechanisms. How it manifests biologically: difficulty forming deep emotional connections despite genuinely wanting to, rapid cooling toward partners after initial excitement phases, constant search for novelty and new stimulation to achieve the same emotional satisfaction that used to come easily. She might seem emotionally available and interested initially, but she can't maintain deep attachment or satisfaction with one partner long-term due to biological limitations. Observable behavioral signs: She cools off quickly after initial excitement phases that might last weeks or months, always seems to be looking for something more or different to feel emotionally satisfied, has trouble staying emotionally engaged with one partner long-term, regardless of relationship quality, frequently describes feeling bored or restless in relationships, despite them being objectively good relationships with quality men. Why it's impossible to fake. This is an involuntary biological process involving hormone production and receptor sensitivity that operates below conscious awareness. She can't consciously control her oxytocin levels, fake genuine emotional bonding capacity, or override her neurochemical response patterns through willpower alone. The addiction analogy. Think of it exactly like addiction tolerance mechanisms that are well documented in medical literature. The more frequently someone uses a psychoactive substance, the more they need to achieve the same effect, and the less sensitive they become to normal doses. Intimate bonding works identically. Frequent partner changes create measurable neurobiological tolerance, requiring progressively more novelty, intensity, and stimulation to achieve the same emotional satisfaction that used to come easily and naturally. Sign 13. Attitude toward experiments and novel practices. The boundary exploration test. The core. Reaction to suggestions of non-standard, adventurous, or novel practices. This reveals the extent of her previous experiential boundaries and how much territory she's already explored with other partners over time. Inexperienced reaction patterns, genuine surprise, spontaneous questions, need for explanations and detailed discussion. Things that are outside normal parameters require mental processing, consideration, maybe some research or mental preparation time. There's natural curiosity mixed with appropriate caution about unfamiliar territory that she hasn't explored before. Experienced reaction patterns, calm acceptance without any surprise, or even immediate counter-suggestions that exceed what you proposed. Nothing surprises her anymore because she's encountered most variations already with previous partners over time. She might respond with phrases like, "Oh, I love that," or "Have you ever tried?" followed by something you never mentioned, suggested, or hinted at interest in. Critical red flag territory. She suggests things you never asked about, mentioned, or hinted at interest in during any previous conversations. This means she's not responding to your specific interests, desires, or curiosity. She's running through her accumulated repertoire of past experiences and assuming you'll be interested in things previous partners enjoyed or requested. The experience indicator. When someone has truly limited experience, novel suggestions require processing time, questions, and mental preparation. When someone has extensive experience across multiple partners, nothing is novel anymore. It's all been explored before with someone else, making her reactions predictable and automatic rather than curious and exploratory. Sign 14. Behavior the morning after. First intimacy, the significance evaluation test. The core, emotional state and behavioral changes the following day. The morning after your first intimate encounter tells you absolutely everything about how emotionally significant the experience was for her personally and how it affected her psychologically. Limited experience behavioral patterns, some visible bashfulness, special treatment of you, noticeable change behavior patterns that acknowledge something important and meaningful happened between you. Increased eye contact throughout the day, more casual touching and physical closeness, different energy in conversations. Clear acknowledgement that your relationship has shifted into new territory with deeper significance. Extensive experience behavioral patterns. Behavior as if nothing emotionally significant happened. Immediate return to exactly the same interaction patterns as before. No acknowledgement of the significance or meaning of what occurred between you. She treats you exactly the same as before with no change in energy, attention, emotional availability, or interaction style. The underlying psychology. The emotional significance of any event correlates directly with its rarity and novelty in someone's personal experience. If last night was special, meaningful, and emotionally significant for her, this morning should clearly reflect that psychological change. If it was routine and expected based on her experience, this morning will be routine too. Specific indicators to observe: pay attention to energy levels, eye contact patterns, conversation topics, physical comfort levels, and emotional availability. Does she seem changed by the experience in any noticeable way, or does she seem exactly the same as before it happened? The difference reveals everything about how she categorizes intimate experiences. Sign 15, reaction to your emotions after intimacy, the vulnerability response test. The core, how she processes and responds to male emotional vulnerability and openness. This final sign reveals her comfort level with emotional intimacy and her learned expectations about male behavior in intimate relationships. Inexperienced response patterns. She responds to your emotions with her own emotions, seeks deeper connection, wants to explore what happened between you emotionally as well as physically. She welcomes your vulnerability and sees it as an opportunity for deeper bonding, understanding, and emotional connection that enhances the relationship. Experienced response patterns. Visible discomfort with your emotional expressions, clear desire to avoid seriousness or deep conversations, systematic tendency to deflect, minimize, or redirect emotional discussions back to lighter topics. Your vulnerability makes her uncomfortable rather than drawing her closer to you. The learned response reason: habituation to detached, casual relationships where emotional vulnerability was consistently discouraged or created unwanted complications. She's learned through repeated experience that emotional engagement leads to messy situations, so she's trained herself to avoid it automatically, even when you're offering genuine connection. The psychological pattern: when a woman has mostly experienced casual relationships where emotions were kept separate from physical activity, genuine emotional vulnerability from a male partner can feel foreign, uncomfortable, and potentially problematic rather than welcome and desired. She's been conditioned to expect and prefer emotional detachment. Core recognition principles. Biology doesn't lie. Hormonal reactions reveal experience. You cannot fake neurobiological responses. Oxytocin, dopamine, cortisol. These chemicals create observable behavioral patterns that reflect someone's intimate and emotional history. Behavioral patterns form through repetition. Actions that seem automatic or practiced indicate extensive experience. When responses are too smooth, too perfect, too predictable, it's because they've been rehearsed through repetition. Emotional detachment is a result of multiple experiences. Psychological defense mechanisms develop to protect against repeated vulnerability. The more times someone has been emotionally exposed and disappointed, the stronger their protective barriers become. Technical knowledge appears only through practice. Skills and knowledge that seem advanced or sophisticated don't develop spontaneously. They require instruction, experience, and refinement over time. Understanding your partner's real experience, you can make informed decisions about compatibility, expectations, and the likelihood of long-term success based on accurate information rather than wishful thinking. Setting appropriate expectations for the relationship. Knowing whether you're dealing with someone who bonds easily or someone who has diminished bonding capacity helps you calibrate your emotional investment appropriately. Protection from manipulation and deception. Understanding these patterns helps you recognize when you're being handled with practice techniques rather than experiencing genuine connection. Ability to make conscious decisions. Knowledge gives you power to choose relationships that align with your values and goals, rather than being led by incomplete information. Which of these 15 signs seemed most accurate to you and why? Have you encountered situations where your intuition was telling you one thing, but your partner's words were saying something different? Share your observations in the comments. Your experiences help other men better understand female psychology. Remember, knowledge is power, and understanding female nature gives you an advantage in relationships. Use this knowledge to find someone whose experience level and bonding capacity match your relationship goals. Whether you want someone with extensive experience or limited experience, the key is honesty and compatibility. Don't let anyone shame you for wanting to make informed decisions about one of the most important aspects of your life: your relationships, your standards, your choices. Stay sharp, stay informed, and remember, the truth might be uncomfortable, but it's always better than a beautiful lie.